Hello, welcome to another video. As you can tell from the title of today's video, I am bringing you my April wrap-up, which is also my OWLS Magical Readathon wrap-up, and I had an amazing reading month. I am so happy with the way that April went. That readathon, the Magical Readathon, is honestly one of my favourite readathons to do, not just because it's run by G, who happens to be one of my best friends, but just because it really gets me to read. And the only other readathon that's done that for me was like the reading quest, but that only happened once, like a couple of years ago, but this has been great. So as you know, there are 12 prompts for the OWLS, and I did manage to complete all 12 of them, so I read 8 books and 4 comics. I'm amazed at myself, so yeah, great. Let's crack on with this. I'm gonna be referencing Goodreads as I go because I want to do this in like chronological order and I can't remember. So let's crack it off with the first book that I read in April. I started off my Magical Readathon with Charms, and that was to read an adult book, and I read The Traitor's Blade by Sebastian de Castell. And I gave this 4 stars. This is the same author that wrote the Spellslinger series, which I adored, and I loved this as well. The thing with this author particularly is his style is very distinct, like you can tell it's him. It's very sarcastic, very witty, very action-packed, like you're laughing but also sort of crying at the same time, because like it's emotional content, but just the way he writes is so witty and sarcastic at the same time. I really enjoyed it. So the premise of this book is that it follows Falcio, who is a greatcoat, and the greatcoats used to be not the knights of the king or the servants of the king, but they served the king but represented the king's law. So they were symbols of justice, and they wore these great coats and enforced justice across the lands. And the king was murdered, and the greatcoats fell from their high rank, and now they're known as the Tattercoats instead, and they're kind of a mockery. And Falcio and his pals have the dream to bring the greatcoats back and, you know, reclaim not their status necessarily, but he still wants to enforce justice, and he does everything that he does for the law and to enforce what is right. So he's a very righteous character. But this was a roller coaster of a book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Love Sebastian de Castell's writing. I think he has potential to be one of my favourite authors. I'm definitely like racking up his books on my shelf. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading the sequel to this as well. But yeah, I really liked it and I gave it 4 stars. The next OWL that I tackled was History of Magic, and for that I read The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman, and again I gave this one 4 stars. Neil Gaiman is another author that I really like. I really like his writing. It's very traditional fantasy, but also a bit twisted and a bit grim, and this was a fantastic combination of that. This is one of his children's works. I say children's because it is still a bit grim. It follows a young boy whose family was murdered when he was a baby, and he kind of escapes to the graveyard and is raised by the ghosts in the graveyard and is given freedom of the graveyard, and that's how he grows. It follows the antics that he gets up to in the graveyard along with the overall plot of this murderer who still wants to get him because he was supposed to kill the whole family, so it's a bit dark in there, but also just Neil Gaiman. It was fun. It was a quick read. I didn't feel too necessarily attached to the characters in this. It was more a read for the enjoyable writing style and the kind of dark twists in it. But yeah, I did end up enjoying it quite a bit and gave it 4 stars. The next book was for Defense Against the Dark Arts, and for that you had to read a book with a title beginning with R, and for that I went for These Rebel Waves by Sarah Rush. There's a big old R there, and I was told that these didn't count, so I could go for Rebel. This book, besides the content, like, is one of the most beautiful books I think I own. I love the vivid green, and I just really like the, like, dark cover of that. mixed with like the plants. I just think it's really pretty. Anyway, I ended up really enjoying this as well. Again, I gave it 4 stars. It was pretty good reading month. 4 stars. I really liked it. I really liked the characters in this and the relationships that formed. Also, the political intrigue. I've discovered that I really do like political intrigue in books and like empires on the brink of war and so on and so forth. I seem to be into that and like watching politics unfold and people taking the weight of politics on their shoulders. Seems to be something that I'm enjoying lately. And this was one of those. Our heroine in here used to be a soldier of the rebellion when she was a child, and she's kind of trying to get over that and telling herself she's a politician now, and what she's doing is being done as a politician, not a soldier of a rebellion. I really enjoyed this. This was advertised to be a bit more piratey than it was. It's more, they're called stream raiders. They're not necessarily pirates, but raiders. And the magic in here was really original. The magic is based on plants, and each plant has a different effect. And there's 2 different like empires. One has a religion that thinks that this magic should be forbidden. It is evil stuff. It will kill your soul, and anyone caught practicing it or even witnessing it or touching anything to do with it, like any link to it, is burnt at the stake and sacrificed to the god or whatever, unless they like turn to their religion or something. And then on this other side of it, they use the magic, it's part of their culture, they're more of a like free colony sort of thing, and they use the magic. And, you know, you've got that divide there. But our couple of main characters in here, Lou and Vex, I really liked them. I really liked how their relationship unfolded. It's told in a few perspectives. You've got Vex's perspective, Lou's perspective, and then Ben's perspective. Ben's perspective I didn't enjoy as much. He's the character over on the religious side. Lou is on the free side using the magic, and then Vex is one of the raiders. So you've kind of got a bit of each and how each of their stories interweave. Vex and Lou's perspective I really liked. Ben's was interesting, but it wasn't my favourite. But yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I've been rambling for too long. I've got too many books to get through. I liked it. I recommend it. The magic was probably the selling point on this, with the character relationships as well. All good. Next, I read Giant Days Volume 7. That was for Muggle Studies, where you had to read a contemporary. I've said with Giant Days before, I read it because it's fun, but at this point I can't distinguish between volumes at all anymore. It's very much a slice of life, these 3 girls at university, just what they get up to, etc. But I can't remember what specifically happened in this one because they all kind of blend together at this point. But I really like it. I like the characters. I have fun whilst I read it. They're always very quick, very non-committal. If you just want something light in between, Giant Days is great, and I gave that one 4 stars as well. Look at me go. Next, I went for my potions pick, which was to read a sequel, and for that I read the Extinction Trials Exile. This is the sequel to The Extinction Trials, which is advertised as The Hunger Games meets Jurassic Park. In the first one, the characters are sent on some trials to qualify for them to be sent to the dinosaur continent, because where they're living, like, they've completely destroyed the land, there's no food, they're on really strict rations, they can barely live, and they need to go to Peloria, where the dinosaurs are, where it's all like a complete paradise except for the dinosaurs. So the plan is to send them over to Peloria to get some resources, I suppose, but they're doing something different this time, and they wanted them to collect the eggs. This follows on from the first one. They end up going back to the dinosaur continent, and it's just fun. The thing with these books, like, there's no denying that the writing style is not the best. It's not technically the best, but it's fun. It's action-packed. I like the characters. I'm genuinely interested in what's going on and what's happening. I like it. It's fun, but it's just not technically fantastic. So I gave this one 3 stars. I had a fun time with it, and I rate on enjoyment mostly. So yeah, 3 stars for this one, but I do recommend the series if you want a fun book. And honestly, The Hunger Games meets Jurassic Park is pretty accurate. So if you're into that, I would recommend. But yeah, I gave this one 3 stars and had fun. The next class I took was Ancient Runes, and the prompt for that was a retelling, and I went with the ever popular A Curse So Dark and Lonely, which is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This is the Fairy Loot edition. I wasn't expecting much from this. It's supposed to be a modern retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and I wasn't really feeling it to start with, but it picked up so much towards the end. I'm really sorry that my dog is barking. She just never shuts up. So yeah, it's a modern Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I wasn't really feeling it too much at the beginning, but it definitely picked up more towards the end. Although it's a modern retelling of Beauty and the Beast, the only modern aspect of this is where our Beauty is plucked from, so it's more of a like portal fantasy where our Beauty is plucked from modern Washington and kind of transported to this medieval, more traditional Beauty and the Beast setting. So I don't know if I would necessarily call it a modern Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's more so a portal fantasy. I ended up growing to really like this, and I thought it would be a lot more romance heavy than it was, and our main character ended up being more kick-ass than I thought she would be, and the twists and turns were just more, it was more than I thought it would be, so I ended up really liking it, ended up giving it 4 stars. The first 85 pages, I would say, were a bit of a slog for me, a bit of a like, okay, this is really quite boring. Then it picked up and took me on a journey that I was not expecting, and I ended up quite liking it. So 4 stars for that one. I realised that I forgot that before I did my first one that I've just shown you, The Traitor's Blade, I actually read Lumberjanes Volume 10 for Arithmancy, which is a book by multiple authors. So as this is a graphic novel, it's got the authors and the illustrators. It was actually written by Shannon Waters and Kat Lay and illustrated by Amy Satoyo. So yeah, I gave this 4 stars as well. This Lumberjanes is very up and down. I've said this again before. Some issues are really good, some are a bit poor. This one actually had a decent plot, and that is the parents going to visit the camp. And if you're familiar with Lumberjanes, you'll know that this camp is not ordinary. Lots of strange things happen, and the girls are kind of faced with, how do you stop your parents finding out about the Yetis and the dinosaurs and the mystical, dangerous creatures, the bear woman, for example? Like, how do you stop your parents finding all that out? Because if they knew, they would for sure pull you out of camp. And that's what this follows. And I quite liked it. It was very lighthearted and fluffy and fun. And again, it's another non-committal sort of comic, and I really enjoyed it. This, yeah, it was volume 10, by the way. So yeah, I'm still invested in Lumberjanes, despite the fact that it's very up and down. Okay, I then did Astronomy, and that was to read a book with Star in the title, and for this I read Zodiac Star Force Volume 2, Cries of the Fire Prince. I really liked this. I gave this one 4 stars as well. It's definitely been a pretty good quality readathon. So Zodiac Star Force is all these girls with different zodiac signs getting superpowers, beating evil in the normal world. It's really cool. I love the art style of it. It's so bright and fun and colourful, but I also really enjoy the plot. And I love the zodiac element of it and how their powers correlate to like what they are. And I like their personalities, the main characters. And in this one, they actually end up finding another generation of Zodiac Star Force. And then it's like a whole team of like all the zodiac signs, excluding one, but I think that's going to be a plot point. But yeah, I really liked this. The art style is fun. The characters are fun. I probably would recommend that as well. I then went on to my Herbology exam, which is to read a book with a plant on the cover, and for that I read Extinction Trials Rebel. This is the 3rd and final book in the Extinction Trials trilogy, so I read 2 books from the same series in 1 month, and like that takes a lot for me because I never do that. But these are so quick to read, so much fun, and honestly I think this one was the best out of the trilogy, definitely the most memorable, definitely the characters went on some journeys, and I would read more from this world and want to know what happens next. I rated this one the highest of the series. I gave this one a 4 star. It definitely shows improvement from the first one, which you would kind of expect because the author's going to have got better. But also, I was so into the plot in this one. I don't want to say what happens because it does spoil the earlier ones, but this one was definitely my favourite. I had such a fun time reading it. So quick, love the characters, and again, it's just action-packed adventure fun. Loved it. So yeah, there's that one as well. I then moved on to Transfiguration, and for that I had to read a book with sprayed edges, and I went for Circle of Shadows by Evelyn Skye. I was disappointed by this book. I gave it 3 stars, and I really thought I was gonna like this so much more. I've read The Crown's Game by Evelyn Skye, and I really liked that, and I just thought I would really like this as well, and it let me down. Like, some of the bits in this were a bit cringy for me, a bit unrealistic, like in terms of the sort of dialogue you would say in the situations that the characters are in. You just wouldn't say the sort of dialogue that's put there. For like a decent portion of this, the plot was going nowhere and I was bored. It, again, definitely picked up towards the end. I just would have wanted some of that a bit earlier on. Yeah. I liked the bit of the plot twist that was in there, and then one of the characters does something really stupid towards the end that completely changed my opinion on them, and I'm mad about that, but I won't say what because I don't want to spoil anything for you. But yeah, this book follows, what are their names? I can't remember. Sora and Damon? Yeah, Sora and Damon, who are tigers in this world. They're like killers, the greatest warriors that the Empress has, and they're apprentice tigers at this point, and they're about to graduate, and you know, shit goes down so that there's actually a plot for them to follow, and they end up having to try to save the kingdom. This is the first one in a series. I don't know how big the series is going to be, but it definitely did not wrap up in this book. I don't know if I would read a sequel because I was disappointed by it, and I didn't feel very strongly about it, but I appreciated aspects of it. I liked the magic, and when there was plot and action going, it was good. I liked that. It just felt like it was taking too long to get to it. So yeah, not awful, not fantastic. So 3 stars for this one, and I'm really disappointed by this because I thought I was gonna love this. So yeah. Then I read Moonstruck Volume 2. I read this for Care of Magical Creatures, something with a magical, a land animal, sorry, on the cover, and, you know, people are land animals, but also we've got werewolves and centaur in the back here as well. This, again, was disappointing for me. On Goodreads, I gave it 3 stars. It's since been some time. I think I would reduce that to maybe 2.5. I don't really understand what this gave. It felt a lot like it was just making excuses for our main characters to argue. This book, or comic even, the art is beautiful. It's very pastel, pretty artwork. It's great. And our 2 main characters are werewolves, they are lesbians, and they have a friend who is non-binary as well. So diversity in here, yes. It's a fantasy, there's lots of fairies and pretty things going on. The plot was pretty much non-existent. So essentially our characters get trapped in a fairy ring and have to get out, but like, why? Why did they get trapped in a fairy ring? Because the fairy wanted one of them to play in a band. There was just no plot, and at every opportunity there was any excuse for an argument between the main characters. So disappointing, not the best, but the artwork is really pretty. And then I wrapped it up with Divination and read Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel, yes. This was phenomenal. This was a 5-star book. This was incredible. This is told in interviews and like diary logs, etc. on what they call it, the Themis files. So it's like a file documentary sort of thing. It starts off with a young girl falling down a hole and landing in a massive metal hand. Years later, it's like the research team as to what this is, finding out where it came from, what it could be, etc, etc. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil anything. But this was incredible. The twists and the turns, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I loved it. For something told pretty much essentially in dialogue, you don't get many descriptions, but I felt immersed entirely. It was amazing, and I really grew to like the characters an awful lot, and oh my god, that ending, I won't say anything, but that ending. I have promptly gone out and bought the next 2 books in this series. I want to read them immediately, but I have other priorities at the minute. But this was incredible. If you have not read this, read it. Do yourself a favour, do me a favour, and read it. This was insane. Incredibly insane. I adored it. Okay, I won't gush too much. I'm really sorry that I'm not saying too much specific, but I don't want to risk spoiling anything. But just know, like, it's all over the place in the best way. So there we have it, 12 books in the month of April. I am mega proud of myself. I hope you enjoyed participating in the Magical Readathon if you did it. Let me know how you did, etc. I'm super looking forward to the Newts now in August. I have done them all, so I could change my career if I wanted, because I was going for a curse breaker and I only needed to read 6, but I went the extra mile and read all 12 because I could. So yeah, that's that. I've had a great reading month. Most of those were of a really good quality read as well, so quality and quantity this month. Super happy. Let's hope I can do the same in May. Yeah, if you've enjoyed this, give us a thumbs up, chat to me down in the comments if you want to talk about any of these books or anything at all, then do so down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!